And I remember kind of looking at her, my eyes filled with tears, and I was just like, my body tried to kill me. I was like, I don't understand why my body tried to do this to me.
Hey there, welcome to the God's Goodness Podcast. We are your hosts, Josh and Shelley Hankins, and we're here to share real stories of God's power. Stories of hope, healing, and miracles that will strengthen your faith. No matter what you're walking through, we want to remind you that God is good and He's still moving today. Let's dive in. Our guest today was just hours from death, and she had absolutely no idea. Looking back, she realized God had been working long before anyone knew her life was in danger. But surviving wasn't the hardest part. Today we're talking with Madison Gedman. If you've ever looked back and realized what seemed insignificant was really a setup from God, you're really going to resonate with this story. Madison is a special guest because she's local to us and I get to see her every day. So it's a blessing to have her with us. When I first heard her story, I was like, oh, people need to hear this because how God worked through this story, He just kept showing up. So I just can't wait for our listeners to hear this.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you for me to talk with you guys today.
Would you open this episode with a brief prayer before we start?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today. I pray that you would open every heart and every mind to receive exactly what you want them to hear today. Let my words not be my own, but yours, and give me peace as I share my story, and let it bring hope to anyone that may be walking through a difficult season. Learn and know that to trust in you. Lord, remind us that even in life, when it doesn't make sense, you are still faithful. You help us to trust in the unknown, to lean on you instead of our fears, and to believe that you are working all things together for good to your perfect plan. May this testimony bring your glory and encourage others to place their hope and trust in you. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 I love how you were praying for a way to share your story more.
Yes.
And then we met. So
Yeah.
that was cool. So one of the reasons also I was drawn to your story is because looking back, you can see so many moments where God was at work long before you realized it. It's such a beautiful picture of how He can work all things together for our good. So take us back to when things weren't looking so good. Where does your story begin?
Yeah. So my story begins about 2.5 years ago now. And me and my family had been through a couple difficult seasons. My dad had had open heart surgery, quadruple bypass, the year that I actually got diagnosed with myself. But that was at the beginning of the year. So in January of 2024, my dad had a health scare and had open heart surgery. I was living on my own. And, while my dad was going through this crisis for himself, I started to notice that my energy was off. And I was working two jobs at the time. I was working long hours, and I just noticed that each day that passed, my motivation was going down, and I just felt like something was off with me. And I really struggled. I struggled to get up on time for work. I struggled to do anything after work, and then it progressively just kept getting worse and worse, and to the point where I was sleeping about 17, 18 hours a day. And I thought, honestly, I was like, well, I'm going through a really difficult season in my life. My dad's health scare. My sister had just lost her boyfriend of 10 years to an accidental overdose. So there was a lot happening. So I just said, maybe this is just life catching up with me. So in the early phases of my diagnosis, I had no idea what was going on. I lived with my diagnosis for about a year until it got really bad. And all of that to be said, by the August of 2024, my parents were begging me to move back home with them. They were like, just end your lease because my lease was coming up. And they were like, just move back in with us. They just bought a new house. They were like, you can have the downstairs. And I really fought on moving back with my parents. I was about to turn 30. I didn't want to move back in with my parents, but they were adamant. I mean, they would not take no for an answer for whatever reason. And that's God speaking. They would not take no for an answer. So I moved back home in August of 2024. And 2 months later, I was diagnosed. My mom found me unconscious in my bed and rushed me to the ER. And if I had not moved home, I probably would have been in an apartment by myself and potentially could have passed away, because I was a very independent woman and I did my own thing on most days, and most people didn't hear from me on a daily basis. So yeah, shortly after I moved home, 2 months later, my mom found me unconscious in my bed that morning on that November day. So that's where my story kind of begins. And I can go into more detail about that happened, but that's where my story really starts.
What were you diagnosed of?
Yeah, so, I mean, I had been healthy my whole life. I never really got sick, but when my mom rushed me to the ER that day, funny enough, we laugh about it now, but she actually took me to urgent care. She didn't even know that I was that bad.
Well, I wanna take a step back. They weren't even supposed
Yeah,
to be in town that day. So God's
yeah,
providence was already in the story. They were supposed to be
yes.
going out of town.
Let me backtrack because that's another way that God intercepted this
Yeah, you
plan
gotta
for
wait
me.
a little longer to hear what she has.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll be worth it.
When I moved home, my dad has worked for the airlines for his entire career. He's an airline mechanic. So my parents travel very often. They love to go on sporadic trips. And the week that I was actually submitted into the ICU, my parents, they wanted to go somewhere because my dad was on his long vacation and they were looking at Japan. They were looking to visit my brother. When they saw the flights to Japan, the flights over there were open, but on the way back, they weren't because my dad flies for free. So they couldn't, they were like, we can't chance it if we can't get home. So end up not going to Japan. Then they looked to my brother. They're like, well, let's visit my brother down in Florida and visit his family. And they call my brother up and he's like, hey, our whole family has COVID. Like, don't come down. So my parents are like, okay, let's go to Vegas. So they have everything booked for Vegas. And my dad's like, you know what? Let's check the weather in Vegas because sometimes they go through cold spells this time of year. And if it's cold, we're not going to go. And sure enough, they checked and there was a cold spell in Vegas and they canceled the night before that I went into the ICU. They canceled their trip. And that morning is when my mom found me. So if my parents would have been on their trip, I again would have been alone in my parents' house by myself for probably almost a week and a half and probably would have perished in my bedroom if my parents had went on that trip. So it was another way that God intercepted and saved me from a bigger purpose on this earth. So
Okay, now you can tell him about what happened.
yes. Yes. So yeah, I was diagnosed. It's called warm autoimmune hematologic anemia. And I have primary, which means my diagnosis, they don't know why it happens. It's not connected to leukemia or Hodgkin's lymphoma or any type of like cancer or external disease that be maybe linked to this. So I had primary. And basically what it is that my warm or my red blood cells are being attacked by my white blood cells and they're being attacked so viciously that my red blood cells don't have enough time to reproduce and give me the blood that I need. So when my mom found me that morning on November 3rd, I was completely jaundiced from head to toe. My eyeballs were yellow, underneath my tongue was yellow, my entire skin was yellow, and they rushed me to urgent care. And when I was immediately admitted, both doctors came in to see me and they said, she needs to go to the emergency room right now. And so we rushed me to the emergency room. And sure enough, another way God interjected, my mom actually rushed me to McGee Women Hospital and we parked. And she actually looks at me and I'm half unconscious. I'm actually losing consciousness in and out at this point. And my mom looks at me and she apologizes and she said, I'm so sorry, Madison. I don't think we should be at McGee. I think we need to go to Mercy for some reason. She's like, I just keep hearing that I need to take you to Mercy Hospital. So sure enough, she gets out of the parking lot and 5 more minutes later, we're at Mercy. And thank God she made that decision because one of the top doctors in the country for my type of diagnosis is located at Mercy Hospital.
It's a
So when I
better
was,
hospital.
yes.
More comprehensive. I mean, they could do a lot more at Mercy than they can at McGee.
Yeah, when I was admitted into the ICU, I mean, I was admitted right away. The waiting room was full, but at this point, when they were doing admitting questions, I was forgetting my name. I was forgetting my birthday, my social security. Everything was very confusing for me. I was having a hard time even walking or breathing. And I was admitted right away. And they start to do blood work on me. And they realized I had no blood to give. I mean, they were literally milking my arm. I was hanging off the side of the gurney and they were milking my arm. And about 10 minutes later, they came up to my mom and they said, we don't know what she has, but we think that she's actively dying of cancer, like that she only has hours left. I mean, that's how bad they thought it was for me. And so my poor mother is by herself with me. My dad's at work. Both of my siblings live out of state. And so they basically tell my mom the normal blood range for any adult is between 12 to 17 units of blood. And they go, your daughter has 2.8 units of blood in her right now. Like she has less than like what a newborn baby requires.
Yeah, you
And
should
just,
have been dead.
yeah, yeah. And just to put that into perspective for everybody, 6 and below is fatal. So, however I was functioning on 2.8 units of blood is beyond me. It's God coming in to play and knowing that I was supposed to be here and I was supposed to survive this diagnosis. But yeah, they tested me and I had 2.8 units of blood and they used that blood to basically diagnose me a day later with my diagnosis. And I was in the ICU for a week. I had 5 blood transfusions. I mean, the first blood transfusion they gave me, it was immediately killed off by my white blood cells. So that bag didn't even take. So that just puts into perspective how viciously my body was attacking me.
Wow.
So I ended up getting 5 transfusions. I stabilized at 7. I was sent home, and then it took me almost 10 months to recover and get my blood back up to normal levels. So,
And just so the audience knows that the blood transports oxygen to every single organ, every single part of your body, which is what your body needs to survive. So
yes.
without that oxygen, did you experience any permanent damage to any of your organs?
Miraculously, no. They tested everything too. They tested all of my vital organs. They even tested my brain and all of those components just to make sure that I didn't have any permanent brain damage from lack of oxygen. And I am 100% healthy. Nothing was damaged at all.
That's incredible. I mean, it shunts your body at certain spots. Like it starts with less needed organs before it
Yes.
works its way up to your heart and your brain, your lungs, and it says, "Hey, no more." So, like, obviously, your liver suffered, your intestines would have suffered, your spleen would have, like, all of your organs would have just been shutting down in order to
Yep.
preserve the blood for your brain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
none of them had any kind of cellular death due to lack of oxygen.
Nope. Mm-mm.
Incredible.
I made a time that my extra fluff on my body actually kind of saved me. Me being a little bit overweight saved me. So I try to say, oh, me being a little fluffy, me being a little chunky at the time maybe saved my life. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe insulated, but
Yeah.
I don't know about it saving your life.
Oh,
I don't think lipids carry spare oxygen.
no, I just tell myself to make myself feel better. But even then, doctors told me that the type of warm autoimmune, I have warm and you could have warm or cold. So even me having warm autoimmune hematologic anemia, they said even just me being a warm with that amount of blood in me, that, and if it would have been cold blood, if I would have had cold blooded, I don't know if that I wouldn't have had a better chance. I would have actually been worse off. So they said even me having the warm type probably helped with saving my life as well. So,
Last spring, I came across something I honestly didn't expect to pay this much attention to. At first, I was just interested in the idea of saving money on everyday wellness products I was already buying anyway. But then I started noticing people I personally know getting paid weekly from a membership they were simply sharing with others. That's what made me really pay attention. Because it's not about stocking inventory, pressuring friends, or chasing customers around. It's a membership that gives people access to high quality products at lower prices. And if you decide to share it, there's a compensation side attached to it too. After seeing real people get results from it consistently, I realized this could genuinely become a long-term income vehicle for the right person. If you've been looking for something simple that actually makes sense in today's economy, you should at least take a look at why so many people are paying attention to this right now. The info's in our About section.
So, what have you done or what is being done to keep your white blood cells from going after you again?
yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So, there is no cure or kind of medical thing that they follow for this. It's almost they use other things that are for other diagnoses. So I started on prednisone, which is a steroid, and I was at the highest dose, and it was unsuccessful. So it took about 2 weeks to realize the prednisone wasn't working. And so when the prednisone stopped working, they continued to have me on it, but then I actually had to get infusion treatments that cancer patients usually get. So it's called Rituxan, and Rituxan resets your entire immune system. So basically, we wanted to reset my immune to not be confused anymore. That's basically the whole story of what hematologic anemia is that my body was confused. My white blood cells just randomly started to attack my red. So the theory was is if we reset my immune system, that it would no longer be confused and my blood would go back to normal. And so I was going to have 4 rounds of Rituxan. It's an 8-hour day. You're sitting next to cancer patients and you're getting an infusion and it's not comfortable. You're tired. It feels weird. I only had 3 rounds before I actually had a severe reaction to it. So they usually say your first round of Rituxan, if you have side effects, you'll see them early on in that first round. In the first round, I was fine. Second, third round, I was fine. At the end of the third round, about 6 hours later, I came home and I woke up at 2 a.m. in the morning and I had a rash from head to toe. My resting heart rate was at like 190.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And My
That's
I
bad.
had a yeah, I had a temperature of 104, and we called my doctor that was on call, and they were like, "Get her to the emergency room immediately." I get rushed, and basically, I had such a severe reaction, like a delayed severe reaction to Rituxan, that there was now sludge around all of my internal organs. Enzyme that's released with a heart attack, I think it's tryptophan or something like that.
Troponin.
Troponin, yes. I had enough release to almost look like I had a heart attack. I actually almost had a heart attack in the emergency room from the severe reaction that the Rituxan caused. And so I was in the emergency room even for 2 days, but miraculously, the only 3 out of the 4 treatments I received got my blood back in order. So it's kind of, you have to take it with a grain of salt. That, treatment, almost cost me like my life again, but it gave me my life back because it stabilized my blood.
Hmm.
It was amazing. So after the Rituxan worked, I tapered off of prednisone, and now I just get my blood checked every 3 months. I go in, they check it, make sure I'm stable, and I move on with my life, and I'll do that the rest of my life. So,
Hmm. That's incredible.
yes.
I can't imagine having to go through all that. First and foremost, to have your weakness because of lack of blood, and lack
Yeah.
of oxygen. You had no idea. How could you? To the point
Mhm.
where you passed out and your parents weren't away to 3 different spots they could have been to, and all 3 got shot down. And so they
Yeah.
were available. That Med Express didn't kill you. That, they
Yeah.
knew exactly what to do and said,
Yeah.
you don't need to be here.
There's something else she forgot to mention. She has the type of blood that she can take blood from anyone.
I do, yes.
Just why.
That is a great point, Shelly. Yeah, I mean, they needed a lot of blood from me, and it was interesting because when they tested me for my blood type, it's a blood type that can receive any type of blood, but then also they had asked me, "Have you had any transfusions before?" And I said, "No." And they said, "You have a extremely abnormal amount of antibodies in your blood." They were like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "I have never had any type of transfusion. I don't even think I've ever donated blood." And so they were trying to match me with my blood type with the antibodies, but they just couldn't find it. So I got the blood I needed, and it was a very slow drip, so I didn't have a negative reaction. But even the blood with the antibodies in it, they don't even, still to this day, they can't even tell me why I had so many antibodies in my blood. So to Shelly's point, I can receive blood from anybody as well, which was obviously life saving. So
Big deal. Me too.
yeah.
But you can totally see God clearly once you hear. He
Yeah.
set it all up just
Oh,
so
yeah.
well.
Yeah. If you didn't know for the first 30 years, you definitely figured it out 2 years after that.
Oh, of course, of course. And part of my story that I don't really share with a lot of people, but I think it's important to share, especially if a listener is dealing with this, is that in my mid 20s, when I graduated college, I think that people don't set you up for the real world appropriately. They think that, you go to college, get your degree, you'll get a good job. And it's kind of like this chain of reaction things that happen that they set up for you in your early years that you think is just going to transpire. And that didn't happen for me. College, I was kind of an art nerd, kind of stayed off to myself. And when I graduated, I had a hard time finding a job. Some of my friendships were failing, and I was really, really depressed. And at one point, I was so depressed that I told God, I said, if I'm not supposed to be here anymore, it's okay. You can save a child that has cancer, you can take me instead. And it wasn't that I was in a way that I wanted to harm myself. I just didn't know what purpose I served because I was just so alone and things were not going my way. And so I share that because you're not supposed to do that with God. You're not supposed to beg or barter with him. And I was saying, if there's someone else more worthy than me, take me and keep them here. And when you're diagnosed then a couple years later at 30 and your life is in jeopardy and on the line, it puts a lot into perspective that, what you wish for, what you want actually isn't what you want all the time. And I,
Yeah. Like, God, I was just
yeah,
kidding. I was just kidding. It was a moment in
no,
time.
yeah. And that's immediately when I went back to it. I said, wait, at one point I was asking God for this. Is this him finally answering? Like, because our God is all knowing, he's all trusting. And so I questioned, I was like, oh no, is this my words eating me now? But I don't think it was. But it's just from my own perspective, I learned that life can change very drastically. And it is very, very precious. And so when I was faced with this, I told myself, I am here for a purpose. It's very apparent that I am. So yeah.
I learned that a lot sooner than you did.
Yeah.
My dad had a vasectomy after my sister was born, and it was like 1 in 100 million chance that it would heal. And so, surprise.
Yeah.
Here's Josh.
I knew at
You're
birth. I mean, I didn't because I didn't know Jesus then, but I figured it
right.
out that
Yeah.
at birth I was supposed to be here. I don't know why. He clearly likes
Right.
me to mix it up.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here.
So you had to have a total mindset change too, because you can't just live in fear anymore.
No. Mm-mm. And that's what I did a lot of the time after I was healed. Once I was fully healed and my blood was stable enough, I started applying to jobs and I landed a great job with a nonprofit Christian organization. And my first couple months were really challenging because anytime I was going up the stairs and going out of breath, or if I had a weekend where I just wanted to sleep a lot, I immediately reverted back to, oh no, my blood is low again. So I lived in constant fear the first 4 to 6 months, I would say, that any little thing that took me back to what my diagnosis was or my symptoms were, I panicked and I would go and get my blood tested. And this was at a point where doctors were like, okay, you'll get your blood tested every month. And I was going almost every other week because I was just that fearful of my diagnosis coming back. And it took me a while. It is a whole mindset change to your point, Shelly. I really had to tell myself that I am okay. I do have to trust in the doctors, but also the Lord. He saved me multiple times, and I'm going to be okay. And I couldn't let the fear disable my future because if I lived in constant fear, I would miss out on opportunities, relationships, experiences. And I told myself, I can't do that. I can't cherish the God that saved me by not respecting what he gave me by living in that fear. So it was definitely a whole mindset shift that I had to adopt. And still to this day, I do get paranoid sometimes, but I don't let it disable me in any way.
Well, I mean, that's a natural, rational thing to go through. It's called PTSD,
Yes.
and lots of people have it. And it's not just because of war, it can be any traumatic event. And almost dying is pretty traumatic for the body. And I love that you choose not to live in fear, because we all experience it. We have fear surrounds us all the time as people. And we can either have faith in God or we can trust in the other unknown, fear. And it's a whole
Mhm.
lot easier for me to trust in God than it is for me to trust in the fear.
Oh, absolutely. And if I choose to trust in God and continue living the life he called me to live, I know that he'll give me tenfold and he'll keep nourishing me and he'll keep me on the path that I've supposed to, been on my entire life. So I don't want it to define me because our God is good. Our God is so good. There have been so many incredible things that I've experienced after my diagnosis that I'm like, if our God wasn't good and he didn't save me and keep me here for a purpose, I wouldn't have been able to experience all these beautiful things that he wanted me to. I acknowledge what happened to me, but I don't let it define me anymore like I used to. But it is such a great story. I do love sharing it though. So,
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I would never have known. When you look at people, you have no idea the struggles they go through or what they've gone through. I've never even seen you. Shelly has, but I haven't. And so
yeah.
I'm assuming that you look normal. Like, you don't look like a Lego man. You're not yellow. You're not,
No.
you're not walking. And so the point is a lot of us have things that no one knows anything about.
Yeah.
Nobody by looking at you would know that you were close to death. Nobody.
Yeah.
Twice. Nobody
Yeah.
could have known that. And so I think it helps to put in perspective when we look at people to remember that we're seeing somebody that matters to Jesus, that matters to God, and has gone through something significant that we know nothing about. And maybe that'll help soften our hearts when we look at our strangers or at people or people that have, like anger or whatever, when we're mad at somebody because they're not the person we want them to be, that maybe they're going through something we know nothing about and we should show
Yeah.
them the love of Jesus.
What was
Oh,
that one saying that Pastor John always said?
You never lock eyes with someone who doesn't matter to God.
oh, wow.
So everybody's
Yeah.
eyes that you lock onto is somebody that matters deeply, deeply, fervently to God. Someone who matters
Yeah.
to his heart unconditionally. And no matter what they're doing, what they're engaged in, if it's witchcraft, Satanism, it doesn't matter that God loves them fully and would love to have their heart.
And that's powerful. We even preached that at Light of Life when we were telling people how they can help the homeless. And it's not by giving them money or enabling them in that way, because you don't know what they may use those funds for. But we tell everybody to just lock eyes with that person, that they are human, they are a child of God, and that they are here for a reason. And when you make eye contact and simply ask them their name, you're putting an identity back into that person. So I full heartedly believe in that. I love that you said that because no matter what anybody has been through, whether it's a diagnosis or you're homeless or you're going through a difficult period in your life, we are a child of God. And I do try to be so kind and compassionate to people because you truly don't know what they're going through. I know that people offered me a lot of grace when I was going through my diagnosis. I mean, I would tell people just what my diagnosis was. And, there were memberships that I had to cancel because I couldn't use them. And when I told people I'm like actively dying, I'm not sure if I'm going to go back into remission. I mean, the level of grace and compassion I received from people, I want to give that back. And it's not that I wasn't that way before, but that lesson in my life definitely heightened it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
didn't you say at one point that this is only 1 in 100,000 people?
Yeah. So 1 in 100,000 people will get diagnosed with what I got diagnosed with. And it's funny because I found a Facebook group of people that have my shared diagnosis. And it's a combination of between warm and cold autoimmune hematologic anemia. They're very similar, but I think there's like only 2,000 people in that group worldwide. Now, obviously, not everybody that has that diagnosis is in that group, but the small group of people, and they meet every year for a convention. And I want to go to a convention one year just to meet others who have been through what I've been through. But yeah, even more importantly, the type I have that's primary, that's you don't know why it caused it, it's even a lesser probability of having it. So it's even more rare to have my primary diagnosis and not know what actually caused it. So
Hmm.
yeah.
That's wild. I had a blood clot a few years ago, and we spent thousands of dollars in blood work, and they still couldn't figure out why I had it.
Yeah.
They're like,
And it was
sorry,
funny
we don't
because I
know."
was literally at EMT school at the time when
Yeah.
she had this
Oh my
blood
God.
clot, and I had just gone over it that day in class. And
Yeah.
so when I went upstairs after my class was over, because it was during the height of COVID. And so I went upstairs and she was telling me what was going on. I was like, man, that sounds like a blood clot. I literally just read all about this.
Yeah. So that
And it
morning,
was.
I was at work, and I told my boss, and I was like, I think I should go get this checked out. And so I did. And then I got the Doppler, or the whatever they call it. And they confirmed it was. And then they put me on blood thinners for a few years. And then they made sure I didn't have the same protein C deficiency my sister has, because
She has DVT though, deep vein thrombosis.
yeah, that's what I had.
Well, no, you just had a blood clot. Doesn't mean you have DVT.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I didn't have the same deficiency that she did. And so I was just on the medication for long enough. And then I said, can I get off of it? And they're like, okay. And so no reason. Like I didn't have the jab or anything. It was just for no reason. And sometimes you'll never know. But then
Yeah.
you can sympathize with people who have a blood clot, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's super painful.
Well, I think we had a reason. I mean, you worked out a lot then. I mean, you started working out a lot.
I
And
thought I pulled a muscle, and
yeah.
my one leg was getting thicker than the other. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. I was putting salve on it, trying to fix it.
Essential oils.
No, I forget what it was, but it was not helping.
No.
Yeah. So sometimes you'll never know, but you'll
Yeah.
be able to get through it and then just help others through it. But then you can sympathize with others more.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think the only thing they really told me that could have even a remote kind of diagnosis reasoning was the level of stress that I was under. And, I've talked a lot with my parents about it, with my brother and sister-in-law and my sister. And, stress can do crazy things to the body that I don't think we can understand really at this point. And so that's the only thing that they could really tell me. They were like, it maybe have been related to the stress that you were under at the time, that you were just so stressed out. And it kind of made sense because there was a lot of stressful things going on in my life during that time. But again, it's kind of hearsay at that point. So I totally understand it just being how your blood clot was. It's kind of like the unknown. So you just never know.
I think it's God's way of saying slow down.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we need to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the worst.
Maybe not.
Slowing down.
But I don't know. I mean, it depends on how we are and how our relationship with him is. And
Yeah.
I would never rule out that some calamity would happen to us, that he would let happen to us so that we would
Right.
be closer to him. Because
Right.
I think about all the times that we don't have to pray for something because he took care of it beforehand.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, how many times have I not had a blood clot? How many times have I not had heart problems? How many times have I not had an accident on the road because he took care of it before I had to pray about it. And so maybe sometimes when he needs to make a connection or needs to make that phone call or needs to really get our attention, he'll let something happen that he normally doesn't.
Yeah, that's a great point to mention. I know that there was only one time during my diagnosis where I became very emotional. And it was when I actually got back from the ICU for a week and I had been settled in at my parents for about 2 days at that point. And I remember my mom kind of looking at me and going like, "How are you doing today?" And I remember when someone asks you how you're doing, it's a very emotional thing sometimes because you're protecting yourself that when someone else asks, then you're being vulnerable. And I remember kind of looking at her, my eyes filled with tears, and I was just like, my body tried to kill me. I was like, I don't understand why my body tried to do this to me. And I remember that night praying to God, I was like, "Can you please alleviate me from this fear that I'm having that my body was trying to rid me of being on this earth with my family, with my cat, with all of my things that I have here?" And I kid you not, I woke up the next morning and I had not even started treatment yet. So it was very early in my diagnosis. And I remember waking up the next morning and throughout my entire process of getting treated, I felt this protective bubble over me that there was no fear in it. There was no questioning God or what happened to me. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. And I think other people have had similar experiences when they're going through treatments for cancers and things like that. But there was like a bubble that surrounded me. I was peaceful in my bubble. I knew that God had me. It was the craziest thing because I was so afraid and so devastated that the day before and then the next day when I prayed and woke up, I felt this protective bubble, and it was there until I was better, and it was so miraculous, I don't know how to even describe it, but I just felt so at peace with my diagnosis, my treatment, what was happening to me, and I trusted in God 100%.
Hmm. Love it.
Yeah.
I had a headache for 4 straight days. It got so bad, I was basically bedridden. That's when I tried the X39 patch for the first time. And within a short time, I noticed a difference in how I felt overall. Now we keep using X39 for energy, recovery, and soreness. What caught my attention is that it's not a supplement or stimulant. It's a patented, light-based wellness patch designed to support your body's natural repair processes. If you've been putting off trying X39, check out our link in the About section and finally look into it for yourself.
I like to think that your body was trying to kill you because it knows that when you die, you're not taking it with you. That
Right.
all the sinful things that we're born with on our body, the reason why our bodies crave sin is because it's trying to actively fight against our spirit because it knows it's not coming with us.
Right.
It knows it's being left behind, that it's not worthy to enter the gates. Our spirit has been purified. Our spirit is cleansed by the blood of Jesus, but this body, no, it's done too much. It's got to
Yes.
go.
Yes. And Shelly knows this, and my grandmother just passed away last Wednesday, and at her funeral service, I'll never forget the priest saying, "My grandmother isn't gone, she's just transformed. Her soul has transformed." It brought me so much peace knowing that, your body is a vessel, and once we do pass on, it's our soul actually transforms. We change form, but we transform into what we've always been. And it was such a beautiful thing when he said that. It brought me a lot of peace.
Mhm.
And then when I spoke, I always say, and I heard this from a mentor at Light of Life, Doug Smith. He always said that, when a loved one passes, they're not in your past, but they're in your future. And that just brings me so much comfort because one day we will see all of the loved ones we have had that passed that have moved on and transformed. And so it just brings me great comfort. And so, yeah, there have been so many validating moments for me that have put me at peace with a lot of what I've
Mhm.
experienced. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean that realization helps me in my job. I see a lot of deceased people of all ages, from very young to very old. I look at it as a different perspective that they're just not home. There's nobody there. It's not. It's just a body.
Yeah.
It's an
Me
empty
too.
vessel. They're not there, and it's not something I tell their family. Like, hey, man, it's cool. They're not there
Right.
because they're grieving and they're upset. It's not the
Yeah.
time.
Of course. Yeah.
And I kind of like just keep it for myself as my own private way. So like when there's the 2-year-old that died in the crib overnight and I'll sit in a truck waiting for the coroner and nobody else wants to sit with the kid, but I don't have a problem with it because I have a different perspective. I know where that child is. I know that that child is not in pain. I know that all the grief that the mother has is not being shared with the child at that moment, that that child is being loved.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't bother me.
It's a
It's
great,
weird. It's so surreal. It's so weird.
yeah. It's a blessing to have that perspective truly, because it has taken me a while to get there. And I won't say my perspective is perfect at all, but it definitely has like healed me and given me the grace to kind of move forward and not have to worry about some of those things. So
Absolutely. Yeah, my perspective isn't
yeah.
perfect either. I just want to stress that out there.
Yeah, yeah.
But it works for what God has me doing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And you're right where you're supposed to be, just as I am, just as Shelly is. So yeah, I love that.
I want to offer some encouragement that a
Mm.
diagnosis isn't always forever. Our one friend, Wendy Lawson, she was told she had MS. She was healed of that. They were telling her it was forever. But then, even when they scanned her brain, it still had lesions on it as if she had it, but she doesn't have any of the symptoms.
Yeah, no
Well,
deficits.
I was also diagnosed years ago as being bipolar, and then I got undiagnosed. So a diagnosis isn't always forever in God's economy. And so
yeah.
when and if this is gone in this lifetime before heaven, I want you to come back on and offer some more encouragement to the audience because you never know. It's an adventure with God. And so you never know what he's going to do.
Yes. And that's something about my diagnosis, and this is why I can't live in fear. They've told me they are uncertain whether it will come back or not. And so that's something I kind of have to wrestle with every day. And that's why I get my blood checked every 3 months to just make sure that I'm stable. But I've had questions about what my future looks like. Will it come back? And they honestly cannot give me a definite answer. And so I told myself, "Well, I'm equipped now. I know how to fight this. I know that God got me." And, I've talked with people, and I know that I'm still able to have children and that this isn't hereditary and it won't be passed down, and that's a blessing. I know that I can have children, which was something very important for me. So, I've done my due diligence to kind of peace my mind in a way that I can live my life moving forward and not let this define me. My parents have told me, my sister's husband, Shobin, has told me, you know, just think that it's not gonna come back. Don't even put that into the atmosphere. Just know that you're cured and you'll be healthy the rest of your life. And so you have to just take that for what it is. You have to just say, "Yeah, I'm gonna just take every day, make it count, and not think that this will come back." So to your point, Shelly, I tell myself that I'm cured and it's not gonna come back. If it were to, then I'm ready and I'm equipped and I can do it again.
I believe that you're completely restored.
Yes.
I believe
Yeah.
that. And I know the fear that you still have attached to it because of the PTSD. Our son was healed of crippling OCD. And sometimes he gets worried when he does something. He's like, "Oh, man, do I still have it?" I'm like, no.
You right.
Immediately, you can't help it when you make any kind of connection. Your brain makes a connection to the pain and says, this is that. When I was younger, when I first joined the Navy, I tried chewing tobacco for the first time. And it was like this minty, I don't know, Kodiak. I don't remember the brand. But I got so violently ill from this because I wasn't used to nicotine. Not because I even
Yeah.
swallowed it, but because the nicotine itself crippled me. That I couldn't have anything minty for 2 years. And I loved mint M&Ms at the time. I'd open a bag, it's like, nope, I'm
Yeah.
done. No mint. I could not have mint because my body associated that with such a horrible thing. That
Right.
something as good as mint was, my body was rejecting it because of what I had done. So it's a real thing. Your body will fight you against certain things if it knows that it's harmful, or if it thinks it knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. I think, I've now been in remission now for almost 2 years, and there is one thing that I have not overcome that I'm wanting to, and it's actually working out. And it's working out in such a heavy manner that you're kind of like gasping for air because you've worked out so hard. And that triggers me because when I was at my worst in my diagnosis, I mean, when I was even eating and chewing, I was out of breath. I was gasping for air. That's how bad it was. And I still didn't think was wrong with me. So I have to overcome that fear still, and I want to, and I'm going to. But even that, with a heavy workout and associating kind of being out of breath with what my diagnosis, with one of my symptoms were with my diagnosis, that's the last thing I have to do to overcome this fully. And I'm going to do it, and I want to do it, and I'm going to get there. But it's definitely going to be a moment for me that I'm going to have to just be like, I am okay. And I'm only gasping for air because I just did good by my body by working out and getting my blood flowing. So,
Yeah, the only cardio I
yeah,
do is running my mouth. So
yeah, at least you're doing something.
Oh my goodness.
My wife knows.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable with us, for coming onto the
Yeah.
show and telling us, spilling all your HIPAA privacy information. But honestly, just putting in perspective the fear that you had, the things that you had gone through, and what God has done in your life to help restore you, not just your body, but your spirit back to Him. I really
Yes.
appreciate your vulnerability with us. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Of course. Yeah. It was such a pleasure. When Shelly asked me, I want to share my story. I love sharing my story. I think that people can understand that there's someone that you can connect with or know that they've been through something similar or you're not alone. I mean, I know the biggest thing for me with my diagnosis is I was like, wow, not a lot of people have this. They're not going to understand it. And then when I found that group of people that do, I'm like, wow, they get it. So it's such a great thing that Shelly has this podcast and that you can share because you don't know who's listening. Someone can connect and not feel alone anymore. And I know that was one of the biggest things for me is I just didn't want to feel alone in my thoughts or what I was going through. So yeah, it was a blessing that Shelly asked me. I love being vulnerable and sharing my story. That's why I'm still here. I'm serving a purpose of letting people know that it's okay. It's okay to be fearful, to not live in fear, but to be fearful and to move forward. And so, yeah, I really, really appreciate it.
It just shows that Romans 8:28, God works all things for the good of those who love him and are called
Yeah.
according to his purpose. So,
Yes.
and that's where the devil wants everyone is in isolation, thinking they're the only one when there's others that are willing to talk to them about it. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I have to commend my family at Light of Life when I was diagnosed and got better and started working with them a few months later. It was such a great community. We had chapel every Thursday with our long-term clients and the staff, and we got to pray over them, pray over God. I got to share my testimony with everybody, and it was so humbling. When I was done sharing my testimony, I had a client of ours come up to us that had been homeless for 30 years that when is in our long-term program. And he came up to me and he said, "You know what? Me and you aren't so different after all." And I said, "Yeah, we're not." And it was such a humbling moment because we both experienced very significant things in our life that were very damaging. Mine was on the shorter side of things, whereas he was homeless for almost 30 years. But there was such a mutual understanding of that we both went through something difficult and we both respected what we went through and we both moved forward in grace with God together. And it was so I can't thank my family at Light of Life enough for the support they gave me when I was going, through the first couple months after my diagnosis. And it was just incredible. So I love sharing my story and letting people know that you're not alone and we're all a child of God.
Awesome.
thank you. And everyone, if this has encouraged you or if you want to partner with us, we have a link in the About section to all our links. And so there's various ways to give and sow into the ministry. And that helps us get this word out to more people and win more souls for the kingdom and encourage people more and just build their faith. So if you want to do that and the Holy Spirit leads you to, we would love for you to partner with us. And we'll talk to you next week. Before you go, if this episode encouraged you or made you think of someone in your life, share it with them. You never know how God might use one story at the right moment. Thanks for spending this time with us today. And don't forget, God is always working, miracles still happen, and your story matters too. We'll talk to you next week.